My name is asterisk Zara asterisk, and this incident took place in a girls' hostel in Islamabad. At that time, I was studying at the university in my 5th semester. Our hostel was not far from the university. Most of the girls lived there for their studies. My room was an ordinary one, shared by 4 girls. 4 beds, 4 small cupboards, a common table, and just enough space to move around comfortably. In that hostel, there was a girl whose name I will change here for privacy. Let's call her Noreen asterisk. Noreen was not in our room. She had a separate room. There were a few rooms in the hostel that were single occupancy, and they were slightly better than the ordinary ones. Noreen lived in one of those. At first, she seemed different from the other girls. Not in a scary way, but she was a very quiet girl. Clean, soft-spoken, very beautiful, but always seemed lost somewhere inside herself. She came from a village background, but her lifestyle and manner suggested that her family was well off, decent money, good circumstances. Her clothes were always clean, her way of speaking was very polite, and I never saw her raise her voice at anyone. I would come and go, eat in the mess, answer if someone spoke to me, otherwise stay quiet and go back to my room. Our friendship grew slowly. At first, just greetings. Then sometimes we would sit together in the mess. Sometimes she would ask me for notes, sometimes I would ask her something. She spoke little, but when she did, her style made you want to listen. But one thing was strange from the very beginning. She would often say to me, "Zara, come to my room, please. Stay with me, sleep over." The first time she said this, I didn't pay much attention. I thought she must be scared of being alone. Islamabad was a new city for her, far from home. Hostel life, the sounds of the gallery at night, doors creaking, girls coming and going, all of this feels strange at first. I would laugh and say, "Noreen, are you scared?" She would immediately say, "No, I'm not scared, I just can't sleep alone." The matter would end there. She kept repeating it. Sometimes in the evening, sometimes after dinner, sometimes she would come to my door and softly say, "Come tonight, just for a little while." Every time I would make some excuse, class in the morning, my roommates would be upset, I have work. The truth was that I also felt a hesitation about going to her separate room to sleep. I didn't want her to think I was staying with her because she had a better room. Even though she herself kept insisting, such thoughts do cross the mind. One night she insisted a lot. I didn't have much study work that day. I thought, let's just spend one night there, it would make her happy too. Around 11 p.m. I went to her room. Her room was clean and tidy. One bed, a foldable table, a wooden chair, a cupboard against the wall, and a window with a curtain. She had already made a bed for me. We drank tea for a while, chatted. She talked about her home, mentioned her parents. But whenever the topic of childhood came up, she would change the subject. That night, for the first time, I felt that Noreen was hiding something inside her. Around 1 a.m., we fell asleep. I fall asleep very quickly, but that night, because of the new place, my sleep was light. I didn't know how much time had passed when my eyes opened to a faint sound. At first, I thought Noreen was murmuring. A humming sound, like someone talking with their mouth closed. Very soft. I kept my eyes closed and thought, no problem, she must be talking in her sleep. But then the sound changed. The words were not clear, but I could tell she was not just making random noises. She was deliberately responding to someone. I opened my eyes. The room was dark. A faint light from outside came through the edge of the curtain. Noreen was lying straight, eyes closed, but her lips were moving. She said very softly, "No, not today." Then silence. Then she said, "I had said no." Hearing this, I was fully awake. I called her softly, "Noreen." She did not answer. Then from her mouth came some words that I could not understand, not Urdu, not Punjabi, not any common dialect. At first, I thought perhaps the words were breaking in sleep, but no, her tone was like she was speaking in some language. She kept speaking like that for a while. Then suddenly, her voice became a little heavier. It was still her voice, but not like how it was during the day. I thought about waking her up, then stopped. I didn't know what to do. There was no other voice in the room, but Noreen's manner was as if someone was talking to her and she was answering. Then she said, "She will wake up." At this sentence, I immediately picked up my phone, put on my slippers, and quietly left the room. I closed the door very softly so she wouldn't wake up. The gallery had light, and the sounds of girls talking from the rooms were coming. Everything was completely normal, but that sentence kept circling in my mind. She will wake up. Why did she say that? I came straight to my room. My roommates were sleeping. I didn't tell anyone. I just laid down on my bed. Sleep didn't come, but I convinced myself that perhaps she just talks in her sleep. Many people do. What's so scary about that? In the morning, I met her near the mess. As soon as she saw me, she asked, "When did you leave my room last night?" There was no anger on her face. She looked worried. I lied. "I just couldn't sleep. I can't sleep well in a new place anyway, so I came back." She was silent for a few seconds. Then she softly said, "Did I say anything in my sleep?" I said, "Yes, a little." She immediately asked, "What did I say?" I said, "I didn't understand clearly. Some of it was in Urdu. Then some in a strange language." The worry that came on her face I still remember. She quickly asked, "Did you hear anyone else's voice?" I said, "No one else's. Why?" She said, "I mean the voice of whoever I was talking to. Did you hear it?" I looked at her. For a moment I thought she was joking, but there was no hint of a joke on her face. I said, "No, I didn't hear anyone else, only you were speaking." She just said, "All right," and fell silent. After that, for many days, we didn't mention that matter. I stayed quiet, she stayed quiet. Our usual greetings continued. She would sometimes still say, "Come sit with me, have tea. I'm alone today." But I started being a little cautious in my heart. Then one day, a girl from our hostel named Aisha announced that food was on her side. Her elder brother had a son after many years. Her brother had sent her money so she could treat her friends. First, we said we would order something in the hostel itself. But Aisha said no, let's go out. In the evening, 6 or 7 of us went out to eat. Noreen was with us too. That day, she seemed more normal than before. She spoke little on the way, but there was a faint smile on her face. At the restaurant, when the food arrived, she started serving me herself. She put rice on my plate, moved the water glass closer. I said, "Noreen, I can do it myself." She said, "No, you sit." There was a strange respect in her manner. You can tell when someone is doing something from the heart or just for show. That day, I felt both pity and affection for her. I thought perhaps I had overthought things. Perhaps she really was just lonely. Perhaps she just needed someone close. When we returned at night, she was walking with me in the gallery. She said softly, "Zara, come to my room for a little while today." This time, I didn't refuse. I went to her room. She made tea. We both sat in silence for a long time. I felt like she wanted to say something. Finally, she started the conversation herself. "You found that night strange, didn't you?" I said clearly. "Yes, I did." She was sitting on the chair, her hands clasped together. She looked at the floor for a while. Then she said, "This is not the first time this has happened to me." I said nothing. I just let her speak. Noreen told me that before coming to this hostel, she had lived in another hostel in Islamabad. There, she didn't get a single room. At first, one girl lived with her. That girl would wake up multiple times at night, turn on the light, sometimes get annoyed and go outside. Noreen couldn't understand what the problem was. Then one morning, that girl said angrily, "You talk a lot at night. I can't sleep the whole night." Noreen said, "I sleep at night. I don't remember anything." The girl said, "You don't remember, but you talk, and you talk like you're answering someone." Noreen refused to accept that. She thought the girl was making excuses. A few days later, the girl changed her room. Before leaving, she said, "If you don't believe me, download a sleep recording app on your phone. Listen to your own voice in the morning." Noreen didn't take it seriously at first, but when the girl had left and Noreen was alone in the room, curiosity got the better of her. She installed an app that records sounds at night. She placed her phone near the bed, started the recording, and went to sleep. In the morning, when she woke up, there were several recordings. Most of them had the sound of the fan. Sometimes the sound of someone passing by outside, sometimes her own turning in bed. Then there was a recording from around 2:25 a.m. She played it. At first, there was silence. Then her own voice came. "You came again." Noreen told me that hearing this, she immediately stopped the recording. Hearing her own voice gave her a strange feeling. Then she gathered courage and played it again. After a few seconds of silence, her voice came again. "I had told you not today." I asked her, "Was there anyone else's voice after that?" She shook her head. "No, just my voice. I was answering, but the voice of whoever I was talking to was not there." I said, "Maybe you were just talking to yourself in your sleep." She said, "I also kept thinking that, but then the chair thing started." I asked, "What chair?" She pointed to the wooden chair in her room. There was a similar chair there too. I used to keep it aligned with the table when I slept. In the morning, it would be near my bed. At first, I thought I must be getting up and bringing it myself. One night in the recording, there was a sound like someone dragging a chair, as if someone was bringing it near my bed and sitting on it. She had clearly heard that sound in the recording. When she came to this hostel, she continued recording every night. Sometimes nothing would happen. Sometimes only her voice would come. But whenever she talked to someone at night, in the morning, something would be different in the room. The chair near the bed, the water bottle on the floor, books open, or the phone placed upside down. One night in the recording, first there was the chair sound, then as if someone came near the bed and sat down. After that, Noreen's voice came. "Don't sit so close." I asked, "Do you remember anything in the morning?" She said, "Nothing. That was the problem. In the morning, I would feel like I had slept normally and woken up normally. Only when I listened to the recording would I realize that at night I had been talking to someone." I was looking at her. She didn't seem like she was lying. On her face was that tired fear that comes after repeatedly facing something. Then she told me something else. "In some recordings, I was speaking a language I don't even know." I asked, "What kind of language?" She said, "I don't know. At first, I thought they were meaningless words. Then I wrote down a few words and searched. Some words seemed related to an old dialect. I didn't get the complete meaning, but whatever little I understood was not good." I asked, "What meaning?" She was silent for a while. Then she said, "In one place my voice said, 'Not today, people will find out.' And in another it said, 'Don't take her yet.'" At that moment, the room was completely silent. Outside, the voices of girls in the gallery had faded. The night had advanced. I was listening to her, but at the same time, I was trying to connect every word to some ordinary reason, talking in sleep, mental pressure, distance from home, fear, all these were possible. But the chair moving near the bed, the phone being placed upside down, these things I couldn't understand. Noreen said, "I ignored it for many days. Then one night in the recording, my voice said, 'Don't tell my family.' That day, for the first time, I felt that this matter was bigger than me." I asked, "Then did you tell your family?" She said, "No, not at first. I was afraid they would call me back from my studies." I asked, "Then what happened?" She looked at me and said, "Then came the final recording after which I left that hostel." I asked, "What was in that recording?" She was about to answer when suddenly there was a soft sound outside her room as if someone had taken a step near the door. We both looked toward the door. I said softly, "Is anyone there?" No answer came from outside. Noreen got up and opened the door. The gallery was empty. Faint light was coming from a distant room. Everything else was silent. She came back, closed the door, and said, "This is exactly why I don't sleep alone." That night, for the first time, I made the decision to stay in her room from the heart, but I myself was also afraid. Noreen picked up her phone and said, "If you are with me tonight, I'll put the recording on again. Maybe nothing will happen." I said, "Do it." She placed the phone near the bed, started the sleep recording app, aligned the chair with the table, and turned off the light. We both lay down. For a while, there was only the sound of the fan in the room. Then, at some point in the night, I heard a very faint sound of wood dragging, as if the chair was slowly moving away from the table. I opened my eyes, but in the darkness, I couldn't see clearly. At that moment, Noreen said in her sleep very softly, "Today she is with me." Then silence. Then she said, "She doesn't know anything." That night, for the first time, I understood why Noreen wanted me to sleep with her. She wasn't just scared. She perhaps wanted someone to be a witness. After hearing that sentence from Noreen, my eyes were fully open. "Today she is with me." I looked at her in the darkness. She was not lying facing me. Her face was toward the ceiling. Her eyes were closed, but her lips were moving. She was not awake, that was clear. Her breathing was like that of deep sleep, but she was answering. Then she said, "She doesn't know anything." After this, silence fell in the room. I convinced myself that all of this was her sleep talking. People can say strange things in sleep, but the problem was that I had heard the chair sound myself. That same wooden chair we had aligned with the table before sleeping. Even then, I couldn't see clearly in the dark, but the sound had come from that direction. After a while, another very soft sound came. This time, it felt like someone had sat on the chair and the wood had creaked lightly with the change in weight. Noreen said with her eyes still closed, "I had told you not today." Then she was silent for a few moments. "No, she won't agree." The silence in the room was heavy. I kept my phone in my hand, wanting to turn on the light and see where the chair was, but I just didn't have the courage. On one hand, I felt that if I turned on the light and found nothing, I would embarrass myself. On the other hand, there was the fear that if something did appear, what would I do then? Noreen started speaking in that strange language again. This time, the words were clearer than before, but still not understandable. She was not speaking fast, just slowly, as if explaining something to someone. Her voice sometimes sounded like her own, sometimes slightly changed. The strange thing was that there was no voice of the other person in the room, but between Noreen's responses, there was enough of a pause as if she was listening to someone. Then she suddenly said, "Don't tell my family." After that sentence, she fell silent. I waited for a long time. The chair sound did not come again. The fan was running. Outside in the gallery, there was now complete silence. It was probably around 3 a.m. My eyes were open, but I was not moving. Near dawn, I don't know when I fell asleep. In the morning, when I woke up, Noreen was already awake. She was sitting at the edge of the bed, looking toward the floor. The first thing I did was look at the chair. It was not near the table. It was placed right next to Noreen's bed, so close that if someone sat on it, their knees would touch the bed. I looked at Noreen. She looked at me. Then, without saying anything, she picked up her phone, opened the sleep recording app, and played the recording from 2:52 a.m. At first, there was the sound of the fan, then the faint rustle of our bed, then a soft sound, the sound of a chair being dragged. That sound was clear in the recording, so clear that it was hard to mistake it for anything else. Then Noreen's voice came. "Today she is with me." A pause. "She doesn't know anything." Then another faint chair sound, as if someone was pulling it even closer. Then Noreen said, "She will get scared." Hearing this, my hands actually went weak. Because the night before, I had been thinking exactly that. What would happen if I turned on the light and something appeared? It was as if she was answering my condition, or explaining to someone that I would get scared. Noreen stopped the recording. I said, "Play the rest." She said, "You need to hear it." I said, "Yes, why? This is no longer just your matter. I was also in the room." She played the recording again. A few seconds of silence. Then Noreen started speaking in that strange language. In the recording, her words were clear. I noticed that one word kept repeating. I didn't know what it meant, but she was repeating it in every other sentence, sometimes softly, sometimes as if refusing. Then suddenly she spoke in Urdu. "I didn't call you." Silence. "I came here to study." Silence. "No, this is my friend." Silence. Hearing this, I asked her to stop the recording. I felt like I was being mentioned. Noreen put the phone aside. We both sat in silence for a while. I asked her, "How long has this been going on? Tell me the truth." She said very softly, "There were some things before the previous hostel too, but I didn't understand them. The matter actually opened up there." I asked, "Then why did you leave that hostel?" She said, "Because after what happened there on the last day, I couldn't stay there anymore." I told her to tell me everything from the beginning. She hesitated at first. Then, as if she had decided that hiding was no longer useful, she began. Noreen told me that in the previous hostel, when her roommate had changed rooms and left, she was alone for the first few days and felt very peaceful. She thought it was good, now no one would complain. But from the sleep recording app, she started finding something or the other every night. At first, the recordings were just strange, scary. She would say in her sleep, "Who are you? Why have you come? I don't know." Then one night, she heard herself say in the recording, "You have come to talk about the same thing again." This sentence seemed very strange to her because it meant that this was not a one-night matter. As if she had met someone before, talked to them before, but forgot everything in the morning. After listening to the recordings, she started keeping a diary. Every morning, whatever she understood, she would write down the time, the sentence, the thing in the room that had changed. She did all this so that perhaps some pattern would emerge. Hearing this, I found it strange that she was both scared and also trying to understand. Perhaps when a person is alone, they try to organize even their fear to figure out what the problem really is. In that diary, some things kept appearing repeatedly. The chair coming near the bed, the water bottle cap being open, the phone placed upside down, the window curtain shifted to one side. And one thing that appeared most often was the same sentence: "Not today." Noreen told me that in almost every third or fourth recording, she would say this in some form: sometimes, "Not today." Sometimes, "Not now." Sometimes, "I'm not ready." Sometimes, "People will find out." I asked her, "Did you have any idea what you were refusing?" She said, "No. In the morning, I didn't remember anything. But listening to the recording, it felt like at night I was having some old conversation with someone, a conversation I didn't remember during the day." Then she told me that one night, she deliberately took a picture of everything in the room: the chair with the table, the bottle on the floor, the curtain closed, books on one side. Then she went asleep. In the morning, the chair was near the bed, the bottle was on the floor, and the curtain was half open. She listened to the recording. First, the chair sound came. Then her own voice: "Don't come from the door." Then, after a few moments, she said, "Not from the window either." After that, in the recording, there was the sound of the curtain moving. Noreen told me that day, for the first time, she looked outside her window. The room was on the first floor. Outside was an empty space with pipes and the edge of a wall. No ordinary person could stand there, but the curtain was still half pulled aside. I asked, "Did you tell the hostel management?" She said, "No, I was scared. They would say the girl moves things herself and then makes a drama, and if my family found out, they would call me back immediately." I said, "But how did you bear this alone?" She smiled a little, but there was no happiness in that smile. "I didn't bear it, I just kept hiding it." Then Noreen told me the thing that bothered her the most. One night in the recording, she spoke in that unknown language for a long time. In the morning, she tried to write down the words. Some words she understood clearly. She asked one or two people, but in a way that no one would know the whole story. A girl who was interested in languages said, "This seems like some old dialect, but I can't fully understand it." Then Noreen herself searched. She understood the broken meaning of some words. The meaning was, "Don't take her, she can't come between us, people will see." I asked, "Between us?" She said, "Yes, that word scared me the most, as if there were two sides, this world and some other place, and it seemed to consider me caught between the two." After this, for a few days, she was afraid to record. She closed the app. She thought that whatever happens, if she doesn't remember it in the morning, it's better not to hear it. But doing this didn't stop the problem. Rather, the signs in the morning became more prominent. One day, there was a light blue mark on her wrist, as if someone had grabbed it. One day, the fold of her dupatta was tied in a way she never tied it. One day, she found a small piece of paper under her pillow with just one word written on it, in that same unknown language. Noreen burned that paper. She said, "I don't know if I wrote it myself or if someone put it there, but after that, I stopped keeping a pen in the room." I was listening to her, and with every word, an ordinary reason would also come to my mind. Maybe she walked in her sleep. Maybe she moved things herself. Maybe she wrote the paper and forgot. But then one question remained: where did that language come from? During that time, another incident happened in the previous hostel. Noreen told me that one night she was very tired. She decided not to record that night. She turned off her phone and slept. Around 4 a.m., her eyes opened, and she felt like someone was sitting in the room. She wasn't fully awake, just in that state between sleep and waking. She didn't open her eyes fully, but she felt the chair near the bed. Then she heard her own voice. She was speaking, but it felt like she was hearing her voice from outside. "If I tell them, they will take me away." Then silence. After this, she didn't remember anything. In the morning, the phone was off, but the sleep recording app was open. She hadn't turned on the recording herself, but there was a recording from the night saved in the app. In that recording, first there was the sound of her phone buttons, as if someone had turned it on. Then a few minutes of silence, then Noreen's voice, "Who told you to turn this on?" After that, nothing. Hearing this, Noreen broke down for the first time. She felt the matter was slipping out of her control. She didn't know what she did at night, who she talked to, or what she said. Then came the final recording that made her leave that hostel. Noreen told me that night she was very scared. She locked the door, closed the window, put the chair against the table, and placed the phone far away on the cupboard so she wouldn't accidentally touch it in her sleep. Still, she turned on the recording because now she herself needed to know. In the night's recording, at first there were ordinary sounds. Then around 3 a.m., the sound of the chair came. This time the sound was long, as if the chair was being dragged from far away. Then Noreen's voice came. "This is the last time." Silence. I said no, not anymore. Then she spoke in that unknown language for a long time. Then suddenly in Urdu she said, "If my family finds out, they will take me away from here." Silence. Then she said, "Maybe that's for the best." After that, in the recording, a voice came that had never come before, not very clear, but according to Noreen, it wasn't her voice. As if someone had come very close and whispered softly with their breath. The words weren't understandable, just a drawn-out whisper. Then Noreen's voice came. "No, I can't come with you." After that recording, in the morning, her health was very bad. No fever, but her body felt lifeless. She felt as if she hadn't slept at all. She called her family that same day. Her mother had already sensed that something was wrong. 2 days later, her brother came and took her home. She told her family half the truth at first, but when the same murmuring was heard at home at night, the matter couldn't be hidden. I asked, "At home too?" She said, "Yes, but not as much as in the hostel." Perhaps because there were people at home, Quran recitation happened, her parents were close, but I still spoke in my sleep. Her family first took her to a doctor. The doctor said it could be a sleep disorder, possibly psychological. They also gave her prayers. For a few days, there was some difference. Then the same thing started again at night. She would talk to someone. Sometimes the family only heard her murmuring. Sometimes she would say clearly, "You've come here now." Then her family contacted a knowledgeable religious person. Noreen specifically said he was not an exorcist, not the dramatic type, just someone with religious knowledge, a very serious man. He didn't scare them. He just said, "First, don't let the child sleep alone, and wherever she stays, change the place." I asked, "Did he listen to your recordings?" Noreen said, "Yes, I played one final recording for him." I asked, "The one in which you said, 'My family has found out'?" Noreen nodded. "In it, my voice was there. I was saying, 'Now don't come, everything has been found out.'" Then some silence. And then for the first time, that voice came clearly. I asked softly, "What did it say?" Noreen looked at me. Her eyes had fear, but more exhaustion. She said, "It said, I haven't gone, I'm just silent." There was complete silence in the room for a few moments. I was about to say something when suddenly the chair in front of us made a faint sound, that same wooden sound. We both looked at the chair at the same time. It was still next to the table, but its direction had changed slightly, as if someone had turned it toward us. Noreen immediately picked up her phone. The sleep recording app was still running. She turned it off with trembling hands. Then she said to me, "Zara, you should go back to your room today." I said, "Will you be alone?" She said, "I'm never really alone anyway." She said this very simply, but that was the most terrifying thing about that night. I went back to my room, but I couldn't sleep until morning. The voice kept circling in my mind. "I haven't gone. I'm just silent." The next morning, Noreen didn't come to the mess, not even by afternoon. I went to her room and the door was closed. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. This time, a very soft voice came from inside. "Zara!" I said, "Yes, it's me. Open the door." After a while, the door opened. Noreen's face was pale. She let me in. Everything was in its place. But one thing was different. The wooden chair was not near the bed. It was placed directly in front of the door, as if someone had spent the night sitting there facing the door. Noreen closed the door and softly said, "I didn't record last night." I asked, "Then how do you know something happened?" She pointed to the chair. "It was with the table at night. In the morning, it was in front of the door." I looked at the chair. It was indeed placed as if someone had sat there all night facing the door. I said, "Maybe you got up in your sleep and moved it." She immediately answered, "Maybe. I want to believe that too. But last night I did one more thing." She opened her cupboard and showed me a small piece of paper. On it, before sleeping, she had written the positions of everything in her room. Chair with table, phone near pillow, water bottle on table. I looked at the paper. She had noted things down before sleeping, meaning she herself suspected that something would be changed in the morning. She said, "I didn't record because the religious man had said, 'Stop listening to things repeatedly.' But if I don't record, there's no proof in the morning. Just the things are moved, and I end up doubting myself." I asked, "What will you do now?" She said, "I can't stay alone anymore." That day, she called her family for the first time. At first, she just said she wasn't feeling well. Then her mother perhaps understood from her voice and asked directly, "Has the same problem started again?" Noreen was silent for a while. Then she just said, "Yes, Amy." 2 days later, her brother came to Islamabad and packed her things. During that time, Noreen called me aside and said, "Zara, I told you all this because you saw things yourself. Otherwise, I wouldn't have told anyone." I said, "You're going home now, that's better." She said, "Going home isn't the solution. I went home before too. There was peace for a few days, then the same murmuring in sleep started again. The only difference was that at home, people were with me, so it never escalated." I understood then that the problem was not just the hostel or the room. As she was leaving, her brother said to me, "Don't mention what you saw to anyone. People help less and make a spectacle more." I promised I wouldn't. Noreen said one last strange thing to me before leaving. "If ever a message comes from my side at night, especially after 3 a.m., don't reply." I asked. "Why?" She said, "You'll understand." She left the hostel. For a few days, I had no contact with her. She told me later that her family contacted the same religious person again. He said, "First, don't leave the child alone. Fix her sleep schedule. And most importantly, don't use the sleep recording app again." But Noreen still had one thing stuck in her heart. She wanted to be sure that the thing had ended or not. About a week after going home, she voluntarily recorded one night. She told me she did it for one final piece of evidence, because she wanted to show the religious man what she had been hiding from her family all along. In that night's recording, at first there were ordinary sounds, the fan, dogs barking in the street, sometimes the sound of her turning. Then around 3 a.m. her voice came, "You came again." Silence. Then she said, "I had told you not to come now." Silence. Then no sound for a while, then her voice again, very softly, "My family has found out, now don't come." Up until then, only Noreen's voice was in the recording. Then a few seconds of breath-like sound, as if someone was close to the phone but not speaking. Noreen told me the real fear came after that. In the recording, a very faint voice came, not so clear that one could claim it was 100% a human voice, but clear enough that it couldn't be called ordinary noise. The voice said, "I haven't gone." Then a small pause. "I just chose silence." She played that recording for the religious person. After listening, he only said, "Don't play this recording again. Some things are not meant to be answered. The more you listen to them, the more your attention will stay there." After that, Noreen deleted the app. Her family changed her room. For some time, she didn't sleep alone. Slowly, her condition improved. She would sometimes murmur lightly in her sleep, but those clear sentences, the chair thing, the 3 a.m. conversations, all of it decreased. The last message she sent me said, "Zara, I don't listen to recordings anymore. Whatever is silent should be left silent." After that, our contact became very infrequent. I still don't say I saw a face or a shadow. I only say I heard Noreen talking to someone who wasn't there in her sleep. I saw a chair change position. I heard the recording where she was speaking alone, but her responses were as if someone was present. And the strangest thing was that even after she left, for many days, I didn't sleep with the chair aligned with my table. I don't know why. I felt that at night, the chair shouldn't be empty. That was the story. May Allah protect Noreen. I don't know where she is now or what condition she's in. I have no contact with her. And honestly, even thinking about contacting her now scares me.